And let's see, was it Mr. Hardwick?
Mr. Woodcock, of course, won't be with us, so.
Yeah, so Hardwick and Stringfellow.
Okay, so we're at 7 right now then?
Yes, sir.
And I'll let everybody know that we're actually live on YouTube right now before we start the meeting. So I
Okay,
just wanted to make everybody aware of that.
all right, so the only one that we are, Mr. Hardcastle,
Mr. Hardwick and Miss Stringfellow.
okay, Mr. Hardwick and Miss Stringfellow, okay. Yeah. But we'll wait for just a second here. We've got 23 participants in the meeting so far.
Wow.
Lauren, did we have anyone signed up for public hearings tonight?
No, sir.
Okay.
There's Mr. Hardwick.
All right. And then I think Miss Stringfellow, she had emailed me. She had a meeting, but she's on her way. So she is planning to be here, but maybe she'll be a few minutes late.
Okay, well then in that case, we've got a quorum. So we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 6:30. It's 6:31 actually. And so with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And obviously, it's been determined that meeting electronically is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. And a recording of this meeting is going to be made available to the public online. It's being recorded right now and will be made available. And to that end, I'm going to ask Lauren if she'll call the roll.
All right. Do we have a motion?
We have a motion to accept the statement.
Move to accept the statement.
Mr. Altizer accepts. Mr. Lee seconds. Any more discussion? Call the roll.
All right. Altizer,
Here.
Bryant McCormick,
Here, yes.
Hardcastle,
Here.
Hardwick,
Here.
Lee,
Here.
Longmire,
Here.
Silkwood,
Yes.
and Jenkins.
Here.
All right. That's all 8.
Okay, very good. And with that, we're going to open up with a word of prayer. Let's all bow. Our Father, we come before you this evening and we thank you for your many blessings to all of these great commissioners and the people that are attending this meeting. We thank you for our city of Hendersonville. And Lord, tonight we come before you with hearts that are grateful for our country, for the land that we live in, and Lord, for the people, the millions of people that live in it. Tonight, Lord, we pray specifically for Hendersonville, and we pray, Lord, that you'll give us wisdom as we use our minds and our intellect, Lord, to move this city forward in the planning department. Pray, Lord, that you'll just guide every commissioner tonight in our deliberations. And we also ask, Lord, that during this season of Christmas, Lord, that you'll just bless people that are less fortunate, Lord, that are in need tonight. Feed the hungry, the brokenhearted tonight. I pray that you would heal them. We ask that you'd be with us tonight. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
All right, we've already done a roll call, and so that's done. We have one public hearing tonight, and that is it's a request by Jeannie M. Chenault to rezone 1.4 acres from rural residential to general commercial. This property is located on the east side of Calendar Lane on the north side, on the north side of East Main Street as identified on Sumner County Tax Map 159C D 006.01. And with that, Ms. Beery, do we have anybody signed up for this public hearing?
We didn't have anyone sign up on the online forum, so I don't believe anybody else is on, so we're good.
All right, very good. Having been informed that there are no speakers, I'm going to declare that public hearing closed. Is there any request for information and assistance from the commissioners? Okay, hearing none. Additions to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. We have the minutes from November 2nd. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Ms. Silkwood. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Longmire. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Ms. Beery, call the roll.
Altizer,
Yes.
Wright McCormick,
Yes.
Hardcastle,
Yes.
Hardwick,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Longmire,
Yes.
Silkwood,
Yes.
Stringfellow. Oh, she's muted.
Is she here? Go ahead.
She's muted.
Sorry. Yes.
And Jenkins.
Yes. Welcome, Darlene.
Thank
Glad you
you.
could make it. Thank you for being here. I know you're busy. Okay,
That's
we're
okay.
going to
We're
move
all
on.
busy.
I know, but we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Moving on to site plans tonight, we have the Lowe's Tool Rental Edition. And Timothy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Lowe's is proposing to add about a 3,000 square foot addition onto the west side of their existing building there along Anderson Lane. And this will house their tool rental section of their business. It will also, besides the addition, at the back of the addition, they'll have about a 1,500 square foot outdoor sort of lay down area that will be screened from Anderson Lane by a brick wall that will tie into the rear corner of the addition and then stretch backwards along Anderson Lane to provide screening of that outdoor area. Because the addition is going to displace some of the existing parking, and also because the addition itself incurs more parking requirements, you're going to end up being 36 parking spaces short of their requirement. So they are requesting to use the future land bank parking ordinance, which allows, upon approval by the Planning Commission, allows them to land bank up to 25% of their required parking. What that means is that they show a plan where they could provide those additional parking spaces if and when the Planning Commission determines in the future that they need that parking. Upon that determination by the Planning Commission, they would be then liable to build that parking within, I believe it's within 6 months of notification by the Planning Commission. So they are asking for that allowance for that future land bank parking. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Okay, so is anybody from Lowe's here or representing Lowe's that would like to speak to this real quickly?
This is Todd Simmons with Freeland and Kaufman. We're the civil engineers working on the project. And
Todd, why don't you speak to us?
Really, I think Timothy did a good job laying it out. But as he said, kind of a little bit of background. Lowe's has not typically done tool rental, so I think it's an area of business that they'd like to get into. This is one of the first handful that is being established. There are several in the Nashville area that kind of would go at one time, but kind of a new business venture for them, new area of business. And like I said, enjoyed working with staff to get to this point, and here to answer any questions you guys might have.
Okay, at that point, do any of the commissioners have any questions for either Timothy or representative from Lowe's? Okay, hearing none. Give me a sense, Timothy or Keith, on the motion that we need here with the land bank provision in there. Timothy, is that already included in agreeing with all staff comments, or do we need to make that a separate part of the motion here to approve?
Yes, it should be part of your motion, and that would just be to approve the future land bank parking for 36 spaces. They're
Okay.
actually proposing 42, but they're only required to have
36.
36.
Okay, so they agree with all staff comments. There are no questions, so we just need a proper motion that would accept the site plan with all staff comments and the land bank provision for 36 spaces. That's the
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
so moved by Mr. Lee. Do we have a second?
Second.
By Ms. Silkwood. Any more discussion? Okay, Ms. Berry, call the roll.
Altizer,
Yes.
Bryant McCormick,
Yes.
Hardcastle,
Yes.
Hardwick,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Longmire,
Yes.
Silkwood,
Yes.
Stringfellow.
Yes.
All right, that's all 9.
Okay, it is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on now to our preliminary plats. We go to Anderson Point, and that's going to be Sydney and Mr. Free. So Sydney, go ahead.
Sure. So Anderson Point was annexed into the city in September. There was about 29 acres, approximately 28.9 acres, that was annexed in as part of this. This section was zoned in that process as SR1. There was no planned development overlay on it. It was just straight zoned. And it includes 10.14 acres and a connection from Nottingham to Norman Way that will eventually meander over to Saundersville Road. It's 24 lots on the 10.14 acres, and they've agreed to all staff comments.
Okay, thank you, Sydney. Agree with all staff comments. This is a preliminary plat. Do we have a motion to approve? Okay, you were muted, Dr. Lee. I'm so sorry.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do we have a second?
We approve.
Second.
Second by Ms. Stringfellow. Any discussion on this preliminary plat? Hearing none, Ms. Beery, call the roll.
Altizer,
Yes.
Bryant McCormick,
Yes.
Hardcastle,
Yes.
Hardwick,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Longmire,
Yes.
Silkwood,
Yes.
and Stringfellow,
Yes. Yes.
and Jenkins.
Yes.
All right, that's all 9.
Okay, very good. That is approved. Okay, moving on to rezonings. This is the property that we've talked about once before earlier on, and this is a rezone. And Timothy, why don't you lead us through what they're requesting and the history. You did a good job, by the way, on the report, but I think it bears us looking at it again. So go ahead and bring us up to date.
Sure, thank you. So this is a rezoning request for a 1 acre lot located at the intersection of Calendar Lane and East Main Street. The request is to go from rural residential zoning to general commercial zoning. As the chairman mentioned, this request is identical to one that the Planning Commission recommended to the board for approval in August of last year for this same lot. The board ended up not approving that request. It's been over a year since since that request, so they are eligible to bring this back before you and the board. The other thing that's changed since the last request is the approval of Anderson Park there behind Lowe's, which is the residential development that has happened since that last request. There's general commercial zoning to the west and the south of this lot, and rural residential to the north and the east of it. It's in the suburban center character area of the future land use plan, which does allow for this type of commercial zoning. Now, keep in mind, this is a request for a straight rezoning, which means that all the uses currently permitted for general commercial zoning would then be eligible for this lot. So that would include a retail shopping center or uh, motor vehicle service station. Whole lot of uses that are available there in GC. Of course, they'd be limited by the size of the lot, but all those uses would be eligible. So I would just remind you when you're making a motion, do reference the findings of fact that are listed there at the end of the staff report, and include those in your motion.
Okay. Are there any questions for Timothy on this? You remember this was a piece that there was going to be, I believe, a Firestone put on, and we went through the processes, and it did get voted down by the board mayor and alderman. But this particular zoning, if I'm correct, would actually be a little bit better for this particular lot. And it seems like it'd be a better fit. Do I have any comments on that at all? Mr. Freed, you want to pipe in on this one?
As Timothy was sharing, it meets the definition of what our future land use is saying. And then also with the adjacent commercial uses, it's certainly something to be considered to rezone to the requested commercial zoning. Also looking at a little bit less than a year and a half ago, when it went through the same process, the Planning Commission, I believe, recommended unanimously for approval of this based on the different findings of fact, and really nothing has substantially changed other than what Timothy had mentioned with Anderson Park has changed.
Okay. Thank you for that. So we need a motion here. First of all, is there anybody else that would like to speak, ask a question of Mr.
I would
Whitten?
like to.
Ms. Longmire, please.
So was there any discussion by either the city or the applicant in having an overlay of a planned development?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Keith.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. We would love to see planned development. In this particular case, this is less than the 2-acre minimum
Right.
for planned development, and they were not able to obtain additional property or have adjacent property partner with them to get up to that 2-acre minimum. So it's not possible for them to request a planned development that would then allow the limiting of the use. And that's kind of what happened last time as well, is there wasn't the availability to go through the planned development process.
And the rest of the property that's vacant, that's around it now, is it owned by someone else in the Chenault family as opposed to these people?
Yes, that's correct. The names are the same, but it's a different part of the family, from my understanding. And there may be somebody, Mr. Chairman, that's here representing the owner or the applicant that could maybe address some other things as well. But this is different than the folks that are retaining the balance of the property behind there. This was separated years ago as a lot that was created off of a larger lot.
Also, I know they're saying that that they're proposing that it would be a Popeyes, but with the general commercial zoning, were this to pass, they're not obligated to have Popeyes there.
That's correct. Yeah.
And they could put could they put the Firestone store back? Or I don't know why it was turned down by BOMA, but.
Yeah, it could be anything that's allowable, as Mr. Whitten was saying. Anything that's allowable in the commercial zone would be allowed on that lot. It is somewhat of a smaller size lot, so there are some things that would be very challenging to actually fit on the lot. But a Popeyes or a fast food restaurant certainly would fit on a size property like that. But they would not be limited. And even though that's kind of what has brought this application is the possibility of this fast food restaurant, in no way should that impact your decision, because just as we were just discussing, they're not bound to that. So even if they made promises, and they're not necessarily making those promises, but even if they did, they're not bound to that. Once it is rezoned, then they could do any of those commercial uses, which all the property surrounding there, for the most part, is commercially zoned property. So all those uses are allowed within that area already.
But not on this property.
Not
And the
on
other
this-
property's all developed.
That's correct. Yes.
So, no. Don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Longmire?
No, I just wanted that clarified about the overlay of the planned unit.
All right, thank you very much. Any other commissioners have any questions?
I'd like to
Mr. Hardwick?
just a comment. There was a lot of talk at BOMA about listening to the folks at BOMA and the board members saying they really wanted to see this be developed as one big land and one use area, and did not want to make the front door to that whole area not necessarily fit in with what the future use may be. Also, when you look at this side of the road from Calendar Lane going back towards Gallatin is pretty much residential through there. And so it seems to me there's been a lot of talk on the planning commission about big pieces of land and wanting to make sure that we develop those correctly. I just don't see where rezoning this does anything for us. There is a closed fast food restaurant across the street that is going to be reopened as some type of hot chicken. So we would have two chicken places across from each other. I don't like the fact that it could be anything. So for all of those reasons, I'm going to be a no vote tonight.
Okay.
I'd like to say along that line that, kind of like, if this is changed, then that will be used if the owners of the rest of the land at some point want to make something different with it. Well, you did it here, you can do it for us too. It's human nature.
Okay. Having heard that, Mr. Lee, will go to you. And then if there is somebody here that is representing the Chenault's family or representative, would allow you to speak next after Mr. Lee.
Yeah, just kind of going back to Mr. Hardwick's point, which I think is an excellent point. But as I understand it, there are numerous property owners with that Chenault property, which would make what we're wanting to do more difficult, not impossible, and maybe a challenge to the owners to get together to do something exciting. But Keith, could you speak to that a little bit?
That's something we've definitely encouraged in talking to all parties involved, and the applicant or the owners may be able to speak in more detail than what I could speak. But I don't believe at this time with the other parties are not interested in pursuing that at any point in the near future. That's my understanding in my discussions with them. But the applicant or the owner of the property that's requesting a zone tonight, they might be able to speak in more detail to that. But we certainly would like to see planned development anywhere. And on this whole site, we would love to see it on there. But it's not anything that has materialized, but we have certainly encouraged that.
Let me just kind of follow up. If this were to prevail, this zoning, that 1 acre there, 1.4, whatever it is, would not preclude or cause major consternation to whatever comes in behind that if we want to do a bigger piece.
Yeah, and one thing we've done is we've made it very clear to the applicant that there is an expectation that if this all was approved and they did a site plan and got the site plan approved, that as a part of that site plan, we're going to require connectivity to the adjacent property. So you know how we connect parking lots and connect different uses off the main road. This is something that will require that they're going to have to, they'll have a burden of meeting that requirement on this first part of the development, so that the property that's behind it will have access through through the property we're talking about tonight. They'll have access easement across there to access their property. So we don't have a whole bunch of curb cuts up and down Collender Lane.
Okay, is there a representative from the property the requester of the rezoning?
Yes, this is Randy Perry with Google Mills Kaywood.
Okay, Randy, go ahead.
Appreciate your time tonight. I'll address a few of these items. This is a 1 acre piece, 1.04 acres, and it is owned by Chenault, but it is a separate part of the family. The developer and the real estate representative have worked tirelessly with trying to get more property to develop more than just the 1 acre. If you look at I don't know if you've seen it, but we put a site plan together for Keith and Timothy for Popeyes as one access that almost opposes the access that leads into Lowe's. There is no other access. You really can't fit it much on this site other than a fast food restaurant or something small like that. So the 2 points I'm going to make, and then this first part is the adjacent landowner have said not only are they not interested, they will never, double underline, be interested in developing as a part of this corner piece. Now, we've argued with Keith about the cross access. However, we've managed to fit the cross access in so that if that ever did happen, if a miracle occurred and they did want to develop, then they would have cross access through this piece. So the notion of developing that whole piece, including the corner, is likely not to come to fruition for quite a long time. So the owner of the corner piece would like to move forward without that encumbrance. And so what we've done is put a site plan together that fits, limits on such a small property. The use that you could put on this piece of property is limited. So you're not going to get all of the uses that you can get in CS zoning because they just won't fit. You do have a restaurant across the street that could be redeveloped into a Firestone, a Jack in the Box. I mean, you could put these uses in the same general vicinity. This is a corner lot. It fits well for the development that we're wanting to bring to you, and we're not trying or asking for a rezoning on behalf of the landowner. Our client is a Popeyes franchisee who is local. He has the property under contract. This is the first step. And the contract stipulates that if the property is rezoned, then the Popeyes restaurant, he would purchase the property and move forward. I can only tell you, I know you guys have probably been burnt several times in the past, but I can only tell you what I know from our client is that when he has a piece of property in the contract, ultimately a restaurant goes there provided the zoning is in place. He isn't trying to rezone the piece and then flip it and sell it to Firestone. So this is just the first step. The putting a PUD on the property, it is smaller than the 2 acre minimum. However, we've worked with Timothy and Keith multiple times in the past, and they know that we'll bring something to them that usually has more landscaping and screening than what is required if it's something that planning wants to see on what we would consider a gateway onto Calendar Lane. So that's what we can offer you and commit to you. And we're hopeful that you'll vote to at least move this on to BOMA for rezoning. We've got to go through a couple of readings with them as well, and then back through the site plan approval process. So you would then see it again in its site plan format, provided it moves forward. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. I would just, did anybody else have their hand up? I'm sorry. I would just kind of chime in and say here at this point that, you know, we did approve this corner lot before, and it's a sensible use for that corner. Now, we're not at the site plan process yet, as has been noted by Mr. Perry, and I think at that particular time, anything that we feel like needs to be put in place with regard to landscaping, buffering, and future development concerns, that could be addressed at that site plan process. But as far as a reasonable use for that corner, I think this particular request meets that criteria. And so that's my 2 cents worth on this issue. Anybody else? Mr. Lee.
Just, as I recall, and I may be wrong, but as I recall, most of the objection that BOMA had to the rezoning of this property in the past was the fact that there was a corporation coming in, putting in a Firestone that would be in direct competition with a local franchisee. And so their concern was we were going to take a local franchisee and put his business in jeopardy for a national corporate location. And I think that was more of the rationale than just that we don't want this piece of property rezoned.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that out, Mr. Lee, because I knew that, but I wasn't quite sure on if that was the case. And I'm glad you brought that out, because I think that is indeed the prime motivation on that. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. McCormick.
Okay, so aside from getting into the politics of the Firestone and based upon, I agree with with Commissioner Lee, that was kind of my recollection as well. Aside from getting into the politics of the Firestone or not Firestone, personally, I'm not excited about chicken either. However, I'm not also excited to hold somebody's property hostage based on the property of their neighbor. You know, granted, this is family, and while it's not the same, it's still relatives. I would assume that they wouldn't be doing something that would necessarily be adverse. Primarily, our task here is to decide whether our actions are arbitrary or capricious, and essentially looking at whether we have valid reasons and whether this rezone is reasonable. When I look at various factors, such as number one, this body unanimously approved the zoning change last time. It was only because the legislative body overturned our decision on that based on what I saw as the politics of the specific location was that overturned. I believe had it been something else, just personally, that it would have been overturned. Aside from that, I, at this point, move that we approve the rezoning request based upon the following findings of fact. Number one, all around that property is zoned GC, essentially to the west of it, as well as the south of it. And while there is residential property behind there, there's also a country club and golf course not very far from there on that same side of the street. So I find that the zoning change amendment is in agreement with the land use plan for the area, considering it is located back in the suburban center, which allows for the consideration of a commercial rezone here. The second thing is I find that there is no true adverse effect upon adjoining property, considering the locations of the GC around, as well as ultimately the level of commercial property aside from that residential property that's close to there. The third is I find no property owner or small group of property owners will benefit to the detriment of the general public. I also find that the conditions affecting the land area have changed to a sufficient extent to warrant an amendment to the area's land use plan and subsequently the adjacent properties. So it doesn't feel like it's spot zoning. This property is a corner lot across the street from GC, as across the street, both sides from GC. So for that, I make this motion.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval to BOMA with the findings of fact. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Ms. Stringfellow. Okay. Any discussion on the motion and this? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to assume we're going to call the question. So Ms. Beery, call the roll for this motion to approve.
Altizer,
Yes.
Bryant McCormick,
Yes.
Hardcastle,
Yes.
Hardwick,
No.
Lee,
Yes.
Longmire,
No.
Silkwood,
No.
Stringfellow,
Yes.
and Jenkins.
Yes.
All right, that is 6 and 3. It passes.
Okay, that is moving on to BOMA. And once again, that will go through the process of BOMA for 2 readings and, well, the general committee and then 2 readings. And there will actually, Keith, there will be another hearing on this in front of BOMA as well.
That's correct. We'll take it to the BOMA General Committee, which probably will not meet until the second week of January. Then probably the second meeting in January of BOMA, it'll go to BOMA for a first reading, not a public hearing at that time. And then about a month later, at the end of February, there'll be a second reading if it passes first reading. And at that time, there'll be a public hearing for the public to speak on that as well. So that's the process moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Perry.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on now to item number 9, which is staff review projects that are approved, which you've got Hendersonville Senior Citizen, exterior remodel, Maples Commercial Subdivision, Hazel Path Commons, resub lot 2, final plat, North Parish Place, Rowe, and Verizon Small Cell. And then we got the staff reviewed projects that are pending. Harbor Hills Section 2 resub lots 49A and 49B. Harbor Hills Section 2 resub lots 49A, 49B, Phase 1 and Phase 2 concurrently. And then we've got the tractor supply side lot renovations on the site plan. Those are all staff reviewed projects that are pending. We moved down to the other, and this is we're gonna do something here that I'm glad we're doing. On occasion, before a submittal comes before us, sometimes we have a developer that wants to run something by us. And this is the 248 Sanders Ferry redevelopment. It's a planned development concept plan. The owner's Gregory Lutfi. And Mr. Free, would you at this point guide us through this? And this is in your packet. We'll probably put it on the screen as well, but Mr. Free, why don't you take us through this? And then we'll have some open discussion about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a little different than anything we've done since the time I've been here over the last 4 years, but I think it's been done in the past. We'll be looking for opportunities to do this similar type thing in the future. This is what we're doing tonight is just a sketch master plan looking at 248 Sanders Ferry. Looking at a development that the owner and the applicant are proposing, and they're looking to do a combined preliminary development plan and final development plan. They've already submitted initial development plan to the office. We haven't had an opportunity to review that yet, but it's just been submitted this week. Originally, this was on the agenda for our last planning commission meeting to discuss this. In talking to the owners, they wanted to keep this on the agenda for tonight so that they could discuss this just informally with the planning commission and get any input so that they could then maybe alter a resubmittal of their plans. And this is something that's a little bit different. It's something that's going to involve at this location. It's in the suburban living area. It's right across from let me see what image comes up here. It's right across from the marina that's right there on Sanders Ferry. And they're looking to do, I believe, a 6-story building that's mixed use with some commercial parking garage, and I think 71 units. And they'll kind of explain some of the particulars about that. This is going to create it's going to be unique in the sense that it's going to require a change in the future land use plan from suburban living to most likely the Old Town zone, even though it's outside of the Old Town zone. Old Town commercial is probably the best fit for this. Therefore, the future land use of Old Town would be the best fit for that as well. And I'll just I'll let the owner developer kind of share what they wanted to share, and then maybe we could just have some input that the commissioners can give to them. Again, we will not be voting on this tonight. This is just it's just informal in the sense that's just a give and take from the developer to get direct input from the planning commission.
Okay, at that point, let's turn it over to the owner developer. Who's speaking on that one?
Hey, Chairman Jenkins, this is Will Hager, Lowe Design. It's good to see many of you again. We're representing the owners of 248 Sanders Ferry Road with this application. We also have John Sexton, one of our landscape architects, on the call, and Marty Cook, who's helping us draft the covenants and restrictions for this project as it moves forward. Keith did a great job introing why we're here tonight. We're excited to bring this to you. We did make an application for your January meeting, but that doesn't mean we're not open to input from you. We would love to have it if you're willing to give us some pointers and some ideas moving forward. Like Keith mentioned, this is a bit outside the box from what you've seen in the past. It's a very ambitious development plan and offers a lot of public benefits in addition to the private side implications as well. It's a true mixed use building. So Lauren, I don't know if you can share some of the images we've provided, but as you kind of move down, yeah, that's a great place to start if you want to. Yeah, that'll work great. So picturing what's there now, this is the site of the pizza restaurant, and there's a gas station on the opposite corner. We're addressing the street frontages from just south of the bridge all the way to our property line on the south, and then up Hickory Heights as well, with new sidewalks, street trees, a divided median, in an attempt to calm traffic through that location. Obviously, that has been a concern on a consistent basis for some time now, and we think this is a really great opportunity to provide those safety improvements, but to also connect these properties north and south, but also across to the marina, and provide pedestrians a safe path to access the water and access the amenities that our clients are hoping to bring to the area. So it's currently zoned commercial, it's neighborhood commercial. And what we're hoping to do is just expand on that. So Keith did a great job leading us through the land use plan implications and the preferred zoning, which would suit us the best. And that appears to be Old Town commercial, but obviously you'll see the architecture is a bit more modern, a bit more fresh, because in our mind, this area is deserving of that treatment. We want to take advantage of views to the water. And if you can look to the left of the screen, we've got, first floor commercial, which would be retail, restaurants, and that sort of mix. And then the second floor, we'll get to that in a second, but above that starts the residential. So floors 3 through 6 would be a residential tower wrapped around an extensive amenity deck. So if you look at kind of the middle column, those are images of that amenity deck. So a full resort style pool, a cabana area, and some recreational amenities overlooking the marina, overlooking Drakes Creek, and really taking advantage of the assets that are there. And then going back to the building makeup, I'm not sure if we've got if you go up one page, I think yeah. So this is kind of our floor by floor breakdown. We'll have some subterranean parking. First level, like I said again, is that commercial space. Above that, it continues our structured parking level. And then we start with the residential and amenity components of the development. And that continues up. So we've had some really encouraging meetings and conversations with the planning department staff, as well as the fire department. We feel like we're well on our way to addressing the concerns there. And we're really excited to hear your thoughts on it. This would include on-street parking as well as the structured parking. And again, that's to support the retail commercial frontage, but also to slow traffic through this area, and make it a more pleasant space to be a pedestrian, to be a customer of these stores and a resident of the area. So I think with that, well, like I said, we also have Marty Cook on the call, who's helped us draft our restrictions and covenants to this point. And we are, just to be clear, we're still sorting out some property line adjustments that would accommodate this footprint with some of our neighbors, and those have been very very positive so far, and those will come along as we progress through the project. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet is the Greenway extension. Our clients have committed to extend the Greenway from just south of the bridge down the east side of Sanders Ferry Road, and then crossing where just at that intersection over to the gas station property, and then bringing it down. And the idea is mutually beneficial. Obviously, the city gets a significant section of their Greenway goals, but we're hoping to funnel those Greenway users to the front doors of these businesses and this residential development. So we're, again, really excited to bring this to you, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have or hear any feedback you could provide for us.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Let me just start off, and I'm sure a lot of the commissioners will want to offer comments as well, but I'll get the ball rolling. When I look at and of course, once again, this is just an open discussion, but when I look at this particular facility, this is something that I would see on West End, on Broadway. This is something I would see possibly in the Gulch, and that, in fact, it's happening right now in all those places. Mega construction is going on with buildings that are looking like this, and they're beautiful, and they're really advantageous for those particular areas. Now, I purposefully went down Sanders Ferry today, and because I was looking at this, and we have the Waterford Crossings, which is a somewhat new development. It's been around for a while. It's more it's got multi-family, multi-residential there. It's got what I call the tall and skinnies in there. So it's a newer development. So we've got that going on. We've got the Grand apartments, which have been there for a long time. Then we have a high-rise apartment complex, and that name of that one just absolutely escapes my mind right now, but it's a high-rise apartment building. Then we have the Nottingham apartments that have been there forever, a long time. And then right next to that, of course, behind where they're proposing this are the Lake DeVille apartments on Hickory Heights. And then on the other side, there's Lake DeVille as well. So I make the point that as far as multi-residential and multi-family, that row of that particular streetscape has a lot of that on there. So to make the case that this would not be a use of that would be a bad use, that we couldn't make that case. However, I do think, and this is just me speaking as one commissioner, I think as much as I love the architecture, because those are beautiful buildings, I don't think it fits into the characterization of Sanders Ferry Road. And the question being is, okay, so do you make a statement saying, okay, this is going to be a flagship and we want the rest of the peninsula to look like that? Or do we say, we really want us to kind of keep in mind with some of the newer construction? I would recommend, if you haven't looked at something around Capitol View down there on Charlotte Avenue and 11th, there is an incredible piece down there. it's a pond, but there is a streetscape that comes off Highway 96 at West Haven that really has more of a boardwalk look. That it's got the shiplap and those kinds of things, but there's a lot of depth to it and a lot of variation. Something interesting might be able to be developed with that on that piece of property that would actually, it would freshen up, as you called it, it would freshen up that particular area, but in the same time, it would not make it seem like that the apartments that are adjacent, that are behind, would be so out of place. And I've seen this in the city of Nashville, where we've got these big high rises going up, and you look right behind it, and it almost looks like spot zoning in a way. You know, I know it's not, but so I like the idea of sprucing up Sanders Ferry Road. I've said for years that the greatest asset we have in the city of Hendersonville is our lake frontage. And you've got several multi-million-dollar residences just across the harbor, just across the lake. If you go down the property lines there, and that wraps around. And so, you know, I think that that obviously this is a way to develop. I would recommend, and this is just me talking, and once again, I might be the only one that thinks this, but I would recommend highly that you take a gander at if you're going to submit this, not exactly the parking garage idea or the amenities, but just the architecture itself. That I think if it came more in line with the stuff that's there, and that would make it look more like a community versus a cityscape, which I really believe this building has more of that look to it. And it's a beautiful look. It's a great looking building, but that's where I'm at on it. And with that, I'll be quiet and let another commissioner talk if they'd like.
A question.
Ms. McCormick.
Are these apartments or are these owner condos?
Marty, do you want to handle that through the restrictions?
Sure, I'll be happy to address that. And just want to echo what Will said and what Chairman Jenkins said. I do think this is it's an exciting opportunity to bring something fresh to this area and to take advantage of the lake. And so the retail on the bottom would be standard for rent commercial space. The idea, what we're proposing on the residential portion, is that those would be for sale condominiums. We have submitted with our packet some draft CCRs, covenants, conditions, and restrictions for the condo association that would be developed for these condominium owners. And so that's the goal and the direction they're going with that. Similar to the lakefront condos that have been done in Foxland. I don't know whether many of you have seen those, but they're very nice, high-end, very expensive lakefront, lakeview condominiums that have been very successful up there. So that's kind of the goal, is to have that kind of product available with the amenities and the boat dock across the street, and to take full advantage of the lake. But that is the plan for the ownership structure of the residential portion.
Okay, so the residential is owner occupied, and then the commercial is rental.
Correct.
Okay, what's the price point? I know y'all are like still in the real early stages here, but what would be the rough, I mean, if you had to just like totally guess on the residential, what's the price point? I mean, it looks extremely expensive. I'm just curious to know what you think roughly the price point would be, and I won't hold you to it.
We can get that number from our clients. I don't have it with me at the moment. We've discussed, trying to come up with a round figure, because we thought it might be a question that came as part of this discussion. But price point is one thing. I think another way to look at that is what does this provide in terms of increasing your tax base? We're looking at, roughly 2 acres. I think we just made the minimum size for the plan development requirements, but we're stacking use on top of use on top of use when right now you've got single uses on each lot. So you can just intuitively know that the tax base for the city of Hendersonville is going to grow exponentially as this comes online. But we can definitely get those numbers for you if that's something you'd like to know.
Okay. And my last question, and I'm not trying to hog the conversation, and while I work with Marty, I totally wall myself out from whatever project he has. Plus, Marty, I don't think I've seen you in I don't know how many months since we've been doing this remote thing, probably about, I don't know. But anyway, my other question was, what improvements are you recommending for Sanders Ferry Road? I mean, that's the first thing that's going to jump in my mind is growing some multifamily and some volume there.
Yeah, and we've got some cross sections that help to illustrate that. The current condition versus what we're proposing. And we understand that, this may need to be tweaked based on city requirements, but, right now it's basically a 2-lane street section with ditches on either side. And there's not a lot of room for walking. There's not a whole lot of room for even riding a bike. So our proposal is to add a median, and most of this is done within the existing right-of-way, which is interesting, but add that central median to, again, slow everything down, narrow those travel lanes, add on-street parking to both sides. So you've got another narrowing condition, which slows people down to a good degree. Then adding sidewalks, designated space for pedestrians on the building side of the road. That sidewalk would be, twice, 3 times as wide with tree planters to help separate that pedestrian space from the storefronts and help make that more comfortable. Lauren, I think if you scroll down a page, there may be those cross sections right there. So you can kind of see this in a section view with the current condition on top with the ditches and the slopes down to the marina property. This would be looking north. And then the one below, you can see on the left-hand side of the graphic, the front facade of our building, nice pedestrian space. Just under the current condition, the proposed Sanders Ferry Road. So then you've got a nice space for pedestrian travel separated by street trees, and then the on-street parking, travel lane, median, and then it mirrors itself going over towards the marina. So, I think this goes a long way in furthering some of the goals that the city's had for Sanders Ferry Road. Understand it's a big change, but with this proposal and its current configuration, our developers are ready to bring these online independent of city involvement. So they'd be willing to fund and construct these public improvements, which again is a huge benefit in my mind, and would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Hey, Will, this is Keith. If you're controlling that image, can you zoom into that on the cross section?
I think Lauren has that maybe, or maybe Timothy.
Yeah, just to get a better.
Yeah. And we've got one for Hickory Heights as well, which you see there. It's a little different because Hickory Heights is a less major corridor, but the same idea.
And one thing I might mention that I didn't mention earlier is that this is just a little over 2 acres, but the site where this building was less than 2 acres. So they had to partner with the gas station across the street to encompass them in the total plan development. So that's what had to happen to get to that 2 acres.
And that's why we were hoping to do that anyway, but that's why we've shown those street improvements on that corner as well, going up just short of the bridge on Sanders Ferry. Right.
Thank you, Lauren.
Did Miss Silkwood? have a-
Silkwood's trying to get your attention.
Okay, go ahead.
I
Yeah,
didn't know-
I was
I didn't know if
actually
you
reading an email from Mr. Hardcastle about the Capitol View project. Yeah, Capitol and 11th. There is several projects down there that are going, but specifically this one has a lot of commercial uses on the bottom. It has a Publix.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it has an apartment building on top, several uses that are similar in use, but the structure there and the architecture, and they have parking garages as well for their residents. So yeah. So who else was speaking? Or I was, okay, Ms. Silkwood, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think this is an awfully exciting proposal. I'm super excited to see that something is coming here to improve this area. And, that whole building where Saunders Ferry Pizza is really has needed a facelift for some time. But I will echo Chairman Jenkins' sentiments that although I like modern architecture, I think it's beautiful. I don't think it fits in with the neighborhood very well. And I don't frankly see any of the other adjacent buildings changing to something quite that modern anytime soon. So I think it's architecture that fits more, like Chairman Jenkins said, in the Gulch, not necessarily down, Saunders Ferry Road. Another concern that I have is the on-street parking, the parallel parking on the road. As someone who lives at the end of a peninsula, is that traffic calming going to create really what's a choke point for the commuters who live at the end of the peninsula? There's a sizable citizenry who lives at the end of the peninsula and other homes. And as they try to commute back and forth and get up and down Saunders Ferry Road, are you really just creating a choke point right there? So that would be a major concern of mine. But with all that said, I think it's a very exciting project with some tweaking in the architecture. I would be fully behind this. And I'm excited to see this coming our way. So that's my feedback that you all requested.
Thank you for your comments. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah. Mr. Lee.
Yes, I just want to sort of echo what you have said, what Vanessa has said, what everyone has said. I think one of the objectives I've always had on the commission is what sort of new and diverse housing opportunities can we bring to citizens, and what sort of landmarks can we establish that will set a new standard for future development. And so I think something of this nature does that. Plus with the commercial aspect, we're going to be creating jobs. We're going to be creating some very unique residential areas. My daughter happens to live in a city where I have seen a lot of things transform. Someone came in and set a very high standard, and that high standard was duplicated and duplicated again and duplicated again. It is, to me, very exciting for our city to capitalize both upon our water and upon the future. So I do commend our developer and our planners for working together with something that's unique, attractive, and futuristic.
Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Okay, anybody else? Vanessa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just while we're discussing the plan and future improvements and whatnot, so I think it was mentioned earlier that access to the marina would be a positive. So are there any plans to make changes to the marina, to purchase the marina, do anything with that? Right now it's a private marina, so basically we would just be talking about homeowners who are living in this new development walking across the street to, I'm assuming, their privately rented boat dock. I mean, it's a private marina right now, as you all know. So are there any plans to make any changes with that or possibly develop that marina?
I'm not aware of any interest that our clients have in purchasing the marina, but the way we viewed it was actually as a complement to Creekwood's customer base. So this development would give them a place to eat out, grab some quick essentials at a retail shop, or dine out on a patio, or extend their day on the water in a restaurant at this community. So we kind of saw it in a reverse flow, I guess. Now, obviously, some residents living here would be enticed to have a slip at Creekwood as well. So we really see it as a complementary relationship.
Okay, thank you. I think it works both ways, and I think that's just more restaurants on the water, I think, a positive. So.
Absolutely.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, well, that's the input that we have. Once again, I think that everybody's positive and excited. I just feel like that the particular architecture concept that you're looking at here, it's incredible. And, I'll be honest with you, if we were considering north of the bypass, skyline looking things, and if there was a way forward to do something like that building right there would be very, very eye-catching to a lot of people, and that would be something that would be really good. But along this particular corridor that we have, I really feel like that, especially, and let me go back to something that Mr. Free said. If we go back with this Old Town residential or Old Town zoning, Mr. Lee, I believe, was on that committee for the Old Town Commission that years ago, and I was part of that as well. We kind of we might not have envisioned that going out a little bit farther, but it certainly can. It certainly could. But if we do that, in keeping with that theme of a community, of a cross between community and urbanism is really, I think, what we're looking for. Another one that I thought of that you might take a look at is the Berry Farms down on Goose Creek. They have some architecture down there that you might be able to take the shell of this that you've got and still include those elements, but actually just change the facade a little bit to where it would mirror something more community-esque. So there's some ideas.
Yeah, I think we hear your input and appreciate it. Obviously the glass has its advantages to open up those views to the water, all the way around the building. So I think that was a high priority for us when coming up with the concept. But we're happy to consider these other precedent developments and take those going forward.
Mr. Chairman, I think maybe Commissioner Longmire had a question.
Mr. Longmire, I'm sorry.
We've kind of passed by it now, so it's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Keith.
All right. I'm so sorry about
we don't need to hash it anymore.
Okay, well, there's no vote here, and we want to thank all the commissioners for their input, and we look forward to see how this moves forward, Mr. Hager. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Free, Planning Director comments.
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry, we do need to vote on this the meeting agendas for 2021. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
You have that before you, and staff. Go ahead, please.
I'm sorry. This is something that's by ordinance when we meet. Typically, we have some dates that we have to move around, but this year, this is like the first time we haven't had any dates that we've had to move around. But one thing that we want to do, because typically we will have 1 or 2 dates to move around, I'd just like to go ahead and have this in December every year, and we just vote on it to confirm it, because most years we're gonna have a few dates that are going to be off a little bit because of holidays.
Okay, hearing that explanation, a motion to accept this 2021 submittal schedule would be.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second? Mr. Altizer, any discussion? Okay, Ms. Beery, call the roll.
Altizer,
Yes.
Bright McCormick,
Yes.
Hardcastle,
Yes.
Hardwick,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Longmire,
Yes.
Silkwood,
Yes.
Stringfellow,
Yes.
and Jenkins.
Yes.
All right, that's all 9.
Okay, now, Mr. Free, Planning Director comments. I'm sorry.
Okay. I just have just a few things. A couple of one of the first things is I appreciate everybody that participated in the training earlier. And during last month, I appreciate that. I think it was very informative. And then also, if you did miss it, or if you just needed the 2 hours and didn't do the remaining two, I believe we're going to have that recorded, and we'll make that available to anyone that's interested. But there was a lot of good stuff that we're able to talk about there, and learned a couple of things. This has really been the last several months, really the last 6 to 7 months, have been very busy time in the city, and with the planning staff. We've had a lot of activity. I'm going to break down all the activity that we did this year. I'll do that at our January meeting and go over some of the things to give you kind of an annual report of the different activities. But this year, surprisingly, will go down as one of our higher years as far as the things that we touched and that we processed through the planning department. So really kind of different than you would think, but things have not slowed down this year because of the pandemic. Actually, they have increased. We've got different people looking at our community that have never looked at it before and looking at it. Just for example is what we talked about tonight with the 248 Saunders Ferry, is looking at developments and projects that we really haven't looked at before. So that's definitely interesting. And the staff, I just want to commend the planning staff. Have done a great job this year, and I really appreciate each one of them. We've been continuing to be able to maintain a high productivity level and high response level through the COVID stuff, but we're taking different precautions to make sure that the staff is intact and that we can respond to the applicants and the public and to the needs of this commission. Sadly, we're not going to be able to have a Christmas event like we typically do. We will be looking to do maybe something in the spring, depending on the situation. We may look at doing something, and we'll keep everybody informed on that. And that is all that I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate you, Director Free, and all of the planning staff that have done such a diligent job. And we appreciate all of our commissioners, all the time that you've spent poring over plans and learning this medium of meeting. It's been so long since we've met together, but on behalf of the chair, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. And we're praying for you and praying for our community, praying for our nation. And we just pray that your families will be blessed throughout this season. And that's all I have to say. And with that, Ms. Stringfield, do you have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Merry Christmas, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Same to you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
See y'all next year.
Bye-bye.